here, and Shadowhunters is finally back in our lives! So Shadowhunters has only been off for a couple of months, but it feels like a lot longer. I have missed this show so much. It's a little strange having it on at this time of year, because obviously last year the show had all finished by March, whereas this year we have a longer season, so we took a mid-season break, and now we are back for the second half of season 2. I have just watched the new episode, episode 11. I've literally just finished watching it, so I haven't taken down any notes yet. So if I do forget to mention anything or get anything wrong, then just yell at me in the comments. It's fine. It's fine. So where do we even begin with this episode? Let's start with the greater demon that appeared. So at the start of the episode, we end up with the return of Inquisitor Herondale. She comes back to the Institute. They have Valentine locked up, imprisoned there, and they are torturing him to try and find out where the mortal sword is. Not the mortal sword, it's the mortal cup. First video of the second half of the season, and already I'm making mistakes. So they are torturing Valentine, looking for information as to where the mortal cup is, because they think that he's hidden it somewhere, when in reality he hasn't got a clue where it is, at least I don't think. So that's where Valentine is right now. He's locked up in the Institute. We have in this episode the arrival of a greater demon. His arrival was pretty unnerving, walking into that restaurant and murdering everyone because 2 of the Inquisitor's workers didn't know where the cup was. What a nice guy! Magnus ends up informing them that it is Azazel. He is a greater demon and a prince of hell. I'm very excited that we've got one in the show, because obviously they are a more sinister type of demon. Jace explains that normal demons are common, you get them all over New York, whereas the greater demons are rare. So I'm glad that we're getting to see how much darker the greater demons are. And I think we definitely saw that in this episode. So we have the scene where Izzy is attacked by him in an alleyway. I'm going to talk about Izzy's storyline a little bit later anyway, but let's focus on Azazel for now. He attacks Izzy and Izzy disappears with a certain someone. They find Izzy's pendant and they assume that he has taken her. So because they don't know what to do, they go and speak to Valentine about it, who gives them this idea of summoning Azazel and striking a bargain with him to trade Valentine in return for Izzy. Obviously they don't want to trust Valentine and work with him, but they're left with no other option, especially when it comes to a greater demon. It's a bigger deal. So they bring Valentine out safely, securely, locked up, in chains. No way he's getting out of this, right? No way. Magnus summons Azazel. He says that no matter how tempting Valentine is, he doesn't have Izzy. Their plan was to kill him with Clary's sunlight rune that she draws on her palm. So she comes in ready to do that, but it doesn't work. He manages to get out of Magnus's pentagram. They're powerless against him because he's doing some sort of dark demony magic, which renders the Shadowhunters useless, basically. Before Magnus has a chance to do anything, Azazel does something to Magnus, then heads over to Valentine. Something happens to Jace, his rune activates, and he is able to break through whatever is stopping him from fighting. He tries to attack Azazel, but Azazel disappears. They all get up. Shadowhunters come in to collect Valentine, to take him back to his prison. When Azazel disappeared, I figured that whatever he'd been doing to Valentine had worked. Otherwise, it just would have been too easy. It wasn't until Valentine said help that I realised what had happened. Azazel has switched Magnus and Valentine. Alec, Clary and Jace are walking off with Magnus, thinking it's Magnus, whilst Valentine's being dragged back to prison? No. No. I knew straight away that had happened. I mean, we get further confirmation at the very end of the episode when he's walking down the street saying disgusting warlock. But, you know, I knew the minute Valentine said help that it wasn't really Valentine. This storyline is going to be painful as hell. I do not want to see Magnus trapped inside Valentine. I've got to give it to the writers though. That was a fantastic plot twist because it was a storyline that I wasn't expecting. I think it's going to be a really interesting storyline because obviously Valentine hates Downworlders, so he's going to hate being trapped inside Magnus. It's also going to be heartbreaking to see him try and convince Alec that he is actually Magnus, whilst he looks like Valentine. The promo for next week looks super intense. Already I think Harry and Alan are doing a fantastic job of this. So yeah, I'm very excited to see Harry and Alan in next week's episode. So yeah, that storyline was a thing. I don't know whether it's going to be a long-running storyline or something that we're going to deal with within a couple of episodes. But either way, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. So, moving on from that, shall we discuss Sebastian? Because I think we should. So Izzy's storyline in this episode is still about her trying to overcome her addiction to Yin Fen. She's been locked away in her room in the Institute, trying to sweat it out. Alec has been looking after her, keeping her on track, but he gets called out on a mission in this episode, so Izzy is left on her own. As much as he doesn't want to go, she convinces him that she'll be fine. Of course, you can see how much she is really struggling with it, and I found that really hard to watch in this episode because I said this with the first half of the season. The Yin Fen storyline has been really difficult for Izzy, and I think Emerald is doing a fantastic job with this storyline because it's so believable. So she ends up leaving the Institute and going to see Raphael, and I was so sad for her in that scene where she's basically begging Raphael to bite her because we're so used to seeing her as this badass warrior type person, slaying demons with her whip, and because of what's happened with Yin Fen, she is just completely not herself anymore. So Raphael does turn her down. I mean, it's a struggle for him as well because he's trying very hard not to bite her, but he does manage to reject her. She pulls a blade out on him, realises what she's doing, drops it, and then walks out. She ends up going to a vampire den, trying to get bitten there, which is when the Greater Demon attacks her. Who comes in to save Izzy's day? Sebastian! Yeah! Just somersaults in to the rescue. His introduction into the show is completely different to how it was in the books, but I really like where they're going with it. Sebastian takes Izzy back to where he's staying, and he has medication to help her with her addiction. He opens up about his own addiction with Yin Fen and how he struggled to overcome it. He was acting so cute. And I hate it so much because I know who he is. Those of us who've read the books, we know that he's not cute at all. I was so happy when Will Tudor was cast as Sebastian because I really like him as an actor, so I was excited to see him as part of the show. Now I'm realising that was a mistake. He's just really adorable and he's got his cute little accent and I want to love him. But I can't, because I know he's Sebastian. Damn you, Shadowhunters, for casting Will Tudor. So he's seemingly being very nice to Izzy, acting as though he relates to what she's going through. I did like that when he was talking about the fact that he came from the London Institute and he wanted to get out of there because Yin Fen was hard to escape there. I was just thinking about Jem. I love Jem a lot. Please bring him into the show. Just hurry up. Just bring him. But he ends up cooking dinner for Izzy, going on about his travels and stuff, and he just seems like such a nice guy. So trustworthy. I mean, you just look at his face and think, oh, he's a nice boy, isn't he? He's not one of the most evil characters I've ever come across in literature before. Not at all, no. So he persuades Izzy to stay with him while she gets over the Yin Fen, and he also hands Izzy the phone and persuades her to call Alec and let the Institute know that she's safe. And by doing that, he obviously gains some of Izzy's trust because he does seem so nice and down to earth. So she calls Alec up and says that she's fine, but she has to stay away for a few days. She says that it's something she has to overcome herself. And I really liked this conversation between her and Alec on the phone because it showed the trust that they have. As much as Alec wants her in the institute and wants to be able to protect her, when she says that she needs to do this on her own, he believes her and he lets her do that. Obviously he thinks that she's safe and she thinks that she's safe. The only hint that you get of something more sinister happening is at the end of the episode when he's making tea. Very typically British, he's making tea, of course. And the kettle is boiling and he's just standing there doing nothing, and Izzy tells him that the kettle is boiling and you see this burn in his palm, and that's really the only hint that you get of everything not quite being right with him. So yeah, that was our introduction to Sebastian in this episode. It wasn't quite what I was expecting, but I didn't really know what to expect with Sebastian being brought in at the moment. So I was very happy with the way it was done. I just hate that he seems adorable when he's not. Just no. I am excited for his future in the show because he is one of my favourite villains. I mean, Valentine is a great villain, but I really don't think he compares to Sebastian in the books. In the show, Valentine is really great, so I am hoping that Sebastian ends up this amazing villain that we do see in the books. I'm also excited for whatever little twists of their own that the writers of the show want to throw in, because I think they can really bend the rules when it comes to Sebastian. Give him more storylines away from what we got to see of him in the books. So I'm very excited. So other things that happened in this episode. Clary finally found out the truth. She is not Jace's sister. Yay! Bye-bye, incest plot. See you later. Didn't want you here anyway. Thank God that's over with. While they are talking to Valentine about Izzy going missing, Valentine ends up taunting Jace when he realises that Jace hasn't told Clary the truth yet. And Jace, after punching Valentine, comes clean and says that he's not her brother. I really liked how this scene was done because it was very dramatic and emotional. Obviously, Clary doesn't know what to think because she doesn't know where she stands. She just started getting used to the idea that he was her brother. She's moving forward in her relationship with Simon, trying to forget about the fact that she ever had romantic ties to Jace. Just as she's getting to that point where it's becoming easier for her, this bombshell drops, and now she has to deal with that. Poor Clary. Also poor Jace. Him and Alec in this episode I really adored. We started out the episode with them training together, which I thought was a really great scene, because I've missed these moments between Jace and Alec, because in the first half of the season there was always some drama and tension going on between them. So it was great to just see them training and being parabatai again. Later on in the episode, after Jace has told Clary the truth, Alec finds him on the roof and he's crying. Oh, my heart! Oh my God! Alec gives him a hug. Finally someone is giving that boy a hug, because it was much needed. Like, it really was. I was ready to crawl through the TV and hug him myself at that point. I mean, I'm always ready to do that every single episode because this poor boy goes through far too much and he deserves the world. But anyway, I was really glad that somebody finally did that. Someone gave him some comfort, and of course it was Alec. So that scene just made me really happy. Also, just a completely shallow comment, but can we talk about Jace's hair in this episode? Because there were times when it just came forward instead of being slicked back. I just love his hair when it's like that because it's so fluffy, and I just want to fluff that hair. I want to fluff it. I love fluffy hair Jace. Yeah. Moving on from Jace's hair, let's talk about Luke! Poor Luke is having a tough time at the moment because the pack are turning against him after what happened at the end of the first half of the season, where werewolves ended up dying because of this whole plot that they had to try and overcome Valentine. A lot of the pack don't trust him anymore, they don't think that he's a fit leader. One of the wolves actually challenges him in this episode, but he's not having any of that. They also want to go and turn mundane so they can regain their werewolf numbers. Luke's also not having any of that. Not on his watch, no. But what I really liked seeing in this episode is that Maya stuck by him, because I really love the relationship that the two of them have, and I'm glad that Maya is staying loyal to Luke. And I think he needs her as well, because he needs somebody that's going to stick by him when everybody else is turning their backs. I'm just waiting for a real Luke moment of triumph later on in the season, where he proves all the other werewolves wrong. I hope we get a moment like that, because Luke deserves it. Got some more Detective Luke in this episode as well, when the restaurant full of murdered people is discovered. He pops along there as a detective, and he has a new assistant who sees him talking to himself. He's actually talking to Clary, Jace and Alec, but they're glamoured so no one else can see them. This new assistant of Luke's, Molly, just thinks that he's chatting to himself. I love the way he saved it with the "I'm just taking notes on my phone" excuse. So this new assistant, when we had that scene between her and Luke in the car, I really loved her. She seemed really friendly and fun, and I love the little conversation that she had with Luke about his personal life. But then when Maya arrived and Luke was talking to her outside the car, Molly took a picture of them on her phone, and I'm just wondering what the meaning behind that is, because at first I just thought that she was this fun new assistant, but that photograph that she took made me think that maybe there is something more to her story, whether she is investigating him for some reason. I don't know, so we'll see how that plays out. But I hope she's not a sinister character, because I really want to like her. So finally, Simon in this episode, coming to terms with being a daylighter. He's got the spring back in his step. He thinks he can finally start moving forward with his life. He has Clary as his girlfriend now, which is something that he's always wanted. He wants to go back to college. He wants to restart a band. He's got all these big plans. Obviously it's not going to play out that way because it's Shadowhunters. When are these characters ever allowed nice things? Really. We see in this episode how much being a daylighter comes with a price for Simon, because as Maya warns him, he can't flaunt that around and let other vampires see that, because they're going to want that. And as we saw, Raphael showed up in the episode wanting to know how Simon was able to become a daylighter. Simon's trying desperately hard not to tell anyone that it was down to Jace, because he knows that vampires will target him. So yeah, poor Simon is in for some tension because of that. Also, when is Raphael going to stop scaring the shit out of Simon? Poor Simon can't go anywhere without Raphael magically appearing. Before I wrap this up, let's talk about one of my favourite topics, Malik. I have to mention that adorable little kiss between the two of them because of how relaxed it was. It's clear that they've moved forward in their relationship and are happy and content, and yeah, they're just happy. So we go from them being comfortable and content in this episode to obviously next week, where they're going to be tested a lot because of this body switch. I am super interested to see what this is going to do to them. Is Alec going to be able to truly believe that Magnus is trapped inside Valentine? Does he love him enough to know that that is Magnus? We will see. We will see how that plays out next week. So yeah, I've covered everything that I can think of right now. As I said, if there's anything that I've missed talking about that you want to discuss, then feel free to leave it down in the comments. I really enjoyed this episode. I thought it was a strong opener for this half of the season. Please do let me know your thoughts on this episode. Also, what are your predictions for next week and for this half of the season in general? What do you think about Sebastian? Where do you think all of this is going to go? Let me know all the Shadowhunter things. So thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you next week, where my favourite character is going to be trapped inside one of my least favourite characters. Bye!